We're all aware of the global pandemic, and initiatives have been started to help locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. And Startups Ignite recognize the situation, and they're championing this particular program. I was honored to volunteer to help because I personally have a sense for the challenges that you're facing with your startup.
One of the challenges we saw was there is a lot of information, but then there is no organized kind of information. We realized that it's worth for having a Saturday for an hour to give startups to focus on topics, actually, anywhere from investment to legal to other areas, actually. But it is a challenge. It's a challenging time. And the support for the business community, we are working on a mechanism where it can scale, actually.
We've essentially seen that for the next 30 to 90 days, folks are trying to figure out, how can I survive? Is what I'm going to do, will it work? Or do I need to have some kind of pivot, either operationally or strategically, or perhaps tactically? Or perhaps it's not going to work. And then how do I turn all this, regardless of surviving or pivoting, into thriving so that I can move forward in my personal mission, my organization's mission, and making a positive difference? And that's what sets the stage for our discussion today. Ask each of our panel members in 30 seconds to imagine that you, the audience, and we are on a virtual elevator, and ask them to give you their really short soundbite pitch of where are we now in this pandemic economy from a perspective of law. And let's start with Aaron, if you will.
I think we're at a stage where the government is still figuring out what to do. Getting their legal ducks in order. I think we need to all plan for a much longer time period of being in this sort of isolation environment, and we should expect to see some sort of unprecedented legal action by the government to keep people in isolation. And we're going to have restriction on rights that this country has probably never seen before. And we should also, expect that the government is going to continue to look for mechanisms to try to fund the economy to stave off a major recession.
Zac, if you could give us your elevator pitch on the pivot area and your perspective on it. Where are we from on?
This is, as Aaron put it, an unprecedented moment, and I think that most companies should be at a bare minimum thinking about pivoting their business to accentuate the positives and critical aspects of business. In that, I would include focusing on cash flow, thinking about very closely about the money that's coming in and going out, and maintaining a lean approach to business.
Steve, we're going to ask you to now give us your elevator perspective on Thrive.
In this time of change, unusual circumstances, and so many things that are different than the way we are used to and accustomed to them being, I think it's interesting to note that particularly in the intellectual property law field, while there certainly have also been some changes, a lot of the paradigms, legal paradigms that we work with and that we help clients to understand and apply to their business have not changed quite as significantly. The structure is really pretty much the same. And in today's strange world, I've had a number of discussions with early stage and even later stage startups where some of the key players, their time allocation is a little different than it used to be. And indeed, intellectual property is something they have more time to focus on. So it really does give us an opportunity to thrive from that perspective.
We saw about half the audience was trying to figure out how to survive, doing the same thing with my social impact event. And that leads us right to Aaron and Enatsky to talk about some things that organizations can do to achieve that goal. Aaron, if you would, please.
Usually the starting place is what are their financial obligations, and have they done an analysis on what their next 90 to 120 days look like? With reduced cash flow coming in from clients, or maybe you don't have cash flow, you think about how are you going to make it to the next 90, 120 days. One of those things is loans. The economic injury disaster loan up to $2 million is available. This is one possible loan program. This is one that everyone's probably heard of by now, the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Act. This is a loan program that you would apply through your bank if your bank is an SBA approved lender, or you find an SBA approved lender. This loan, you can get up to 2.5 times your payroll. Previously, if you were a company with with less than 500 people, you weren't required to pay sick leave or family medical leave, but now you are. As of right now, even startups with less than 50 people may still have to comply with this law. That may change, and there may be exceptions. There's a concept called force majeure. A lot of force majeure provisions weren't really geared for this pandemic environment, but there may be, some people may have a silver lining, and there may be some ways to excuse your performance in your agreement. So you need to take a look at that. You need to think about, if you are entering new agreements, you need to think about making sure that you've got exit strategies in your agreements to deal with this pandemic. To the extent that you get a deferral or a waiver on your rent or payment obligations, you should make sure that it is well documented and framed precisely as possible. If you have employees, you really need to think about, keeping them informed, keeping them safe, enhanced cleaning to the extent that employees are still coming in. I would review your group health benefits to see if you've got mental health resources available for your employees. This is a trying time for everybody. Any help that people can get is great. The unemployment insurance benefits have been boosted, I think, through the end of the year. So, you may not want to, but you may need to think about furloughs or layoffs for your employees, but start planning for that. And then last thing, no one ever wants to talk about this because it smacks of failure, but it is not. It's a tool in the tool chest to keep you surviving. Think about bankruptcy. It may be a last resort. Talk with a bankruptcy lawyer if you need contacts. We can help you with that, but it is not the end of the world, and you can continue through bankruptcy. It's not like you have to shut down.
Find the new areas of opportunity because they're there. Look, if you've got opportunities out there right now, get after it, right? Not everybody does. When it ends, you may lose a lot of your opportunities. Invest wisely. Don't give up on the things that you have been doing that are right for your business. You have to keep going. They need to keep going. And so don't lose contact with those customers. And if those customers simply, have their hands tied now and can't do anything, then find another customer.
The unforeseen happens. Well, this is the time to reevaluate that business plan, right? If you want to thrive, you have an opportunity to access a resource or a partnership that you didn't have pre-COVID. So I would encourage everyone to take a good hard look at their business plans, and don't be afraid to discuss them with other people, with your mentors, the people that you work with, to try and identify areas where you can thrive even during these difficult times. But perhaps while COVID gives us this pause, you can look for things like intellectual property that maybe were lower on the priority list pre-COVID, bump them up on the priority list in your business plan now, so that when the crisis ends, you have things checked off the list. This is also a great opportunity, in a sense, to get out there and meet people that are relevant for your business. Maybe people that were much more difficult to contact pre-COVID. It opens up the geographical opportunities to meet mentors or to meet business partners or to meet new team members that you just didn't have before. And these are ways that you can thrive in today's circumstances. You take a pause and take a deep breath and think about the legal, financial, and just your business plan as a startup aspects, and sort of reinvent yourself a little bit. I think everyone can find an aspect that will enable them to thrive.
Really native to the entrepreneurial or startup / small business mentality every startup is, facing problems across the board all the time, whether we've got, a huge macroeconomic event or not. And so the pragmatic approach that Steve mentioned here, and has come up in numerous other kind of contexts on this presentation, that, hey, look, you're a mechanic in your business. You need to be turning the knobs, and you need to be looking for a bolt here and a screw there, and asking why you bolted this one to that one. This is the challenge of running a small business or a startup. And so, keep going, keep making the decisions, and this is an opportunity to really press forward and, make sure that you're making decisions about the big picture things that are going to affect your next, 6 months, I'd say 6 months to 12 months. And, we hope that, all of you out there are, not giving up, because there's, again, I just don't think that this event is so significant relative to the cumulative of all the other events that you are, struggling against on a day-to-day basis.
That we can't also underestimate or overstate really the importance of the human factor here, because creating win-win relationships is really, in my opinion, one of the best ways to develop a strong business. And in these changing times, understanding how the people that you're dealing with are feeling about these things and how their behaviors are changing is a key element of establishing that kind of win-win relationship.
Actually, thanks for attending, and very good discussion. And also, some of these questions you have and it is not answered, or you didn't get a chance to type it in, please send it to us, and we will get back to you with more